Hey guys, you're watching Team APS. In today's video, we're going to be discussing something that actually popped up a couple of weeks back. I heard about it on Reddit. So it's speed duels. This is something new in the OCG that they're, I guess, playing around with. I haven't heard that it's like an official event there yet.
That's like what they do in 5Ds, right? Where you hop on a motorcycle and...
Yeah, that's why I wonder why they call it speed duels, but it's actually sort of just an alternative format or way to play, sort of like how they have tag dueling and stuff. I've got the rules right here. I'm going to briefly read about them, and then we're going to just sort of discuss what we think about it, what decks might work, and some strategies and things like that. So, to set up your deck, you include 20 cards, so that's monster, spells, and traps. So,
20.
Not 40, 20. Your deck size is halved. Extra deck contains 0 to 5 cards consisting of fusions, exceeds, and synchros. So, very nerfed. We'll get into that later, but only up to 5 cards in your extra deck. You can only have 3 copies of a card, so that's like normal. I thought they might have changed that, but that's normal. You start the duel with 4,000 life points and only 4 cards in your hand rather than 5.
Going back to the anime. Well,
somewhat anime, yeah. And then the field only has 3 spell and trap card zones and 3 monster card zones, but otherwise it's treated as normal.
That sounds... Wait, there was a Game Boy game that did that.
Yeah, and I think Duel Terminals or something like that. And then the turn order is the same as usual. So those are the rules. It's actually fairly simple at the surface. I just kind of saw it as like nerfed Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like it's just Yu-Gi-Oh just scrunched.
I think on the surface, you would think it's nerfed Yu-Gi-Oh, but it sounds to me as like optimized Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at it. Well, how do you mean?
Because the way the game is now, like it does, the game feels fine as it is. But we all know the game can be slow. Not just you taking time to make moves, it's because it takes time to find your pieces.
Oh yeah, if you're not playing like top tier.
Yeah, because like mid-tier decks can brick, low-tier decks will brick, and high-tier decks, well, they try not to as best they can. But you know, with half a deck, it's your plays are gonna happen. It gets to the excitement factor so fast because you're gonna get to your end game, he's gonna get to his end game, and you're gonna see who's gonna win out.
It makes me think like that's why it really is called a speed duel, simply for the sake of it's supposed to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Just in doses. Like you can just play it faster. Like if you don't have time, a lot of time, then you could just play like a speed duel and like, you know, it just doesn't take as long.
Heck, I even think that would be better for tournaments.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. So we're gonna break each rule kind of down one by one and discuss kind of what we think about each one. So let's talk about this 20 card deck since that's the biggest of all the changes, I think.
Yeah, the most glaring one, if anything.
I don't know what I think. Like,
it's such a drastic cut.
It just sounds really dangerous to me. Like I get scared when I hear things like that because it's just like any given deck can be more consistent, but since they didn't change the amount of cards you can have, since you still have the 3 card max, it just feels like you can really optimize some strategies and they would just be so fast that they would like win all the time.
But I have to wonder, will this help out mid-tier decks more or high-tier decks? I mean,
some high-tier decks.
I would say arguably high-tier decks already were so consistent. Cutting them down to 20 doesn't make that much of a difference. But for a mid-tier deck,
diminishing returns.
Yeah, because let's look at like Quantums. They're pretty consistent. They're not the most consistent thing ever.
Yeah.
But if you gave them a 20 card deck, what's his name, Magnus or Magnum? Yeah. Either way, he's coming out really fast.
Yeah, that's true. See, the issue that first came to mind was, of course, like Exodia, right? Like,
that's...
Chicken game, that just seems like that'd be really overbearing. Because
you roll the dice and...
You would win
your opponent surrenders.
If you were playing that. Like, you have 20 cards, it's just going to be 3 chicken games, 3 terraformings, and it's going to be a wrap. So it makes you think like maybe they would need a ban list to kind of monitor things like that. And I thought that they would make the card limit like maybe 2. Like you can only use 2 copies of a card in your deck. Since they're going on the theme of shrinking it down.
It makes sense to me at least.
So that way it's not just like, well, I have a 20 card deck, I'll just take the 6 best cards in my deck and use 3 copies of each one and then just like toss in 2 whatevers, like upstarts or something, I don't know. And just, you know?
Yeah, I mean this deck building, it's definitely would change in this little format because like, would you even use one-ofs in that situation?
Yeah, well I guess one-ofs are slightly better since they're twice as likely to be drawn.
But if you're thinking about consistency, well, as you can now max, like you can max your consistency.
This is all about optimization.
Like that one Raigeki, you gotta wonder, is it really?
Yeah, is it even worth it? Given how fast the game's gonna go too, right? Because like this Well, maybe, I don't know how it works, we haven't tried it, but
Yeah.
speed duels, it sounds like can actually just go really quick. When you have 4,000 life points, it's like, you might not even have enough time for a Raigeki to draw into it, but then maybe you do, I don't really know. It's one of those things that, like 20 cards, man, that's drastic.
But let's talk about the hands though.
Yeah, so...
You gotta start off with 4
So starting off with 4 cards. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That alone means your deck's only 16 cards after that.
Man.
And when you go first, like you don't draw, but when you go second and you draw your, like, dude, that's a really...
But I think that does hurt opening plays though. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to think about all of it, like, right? Because
Cause if our decks as of now we had to open 4 cards, first turns would be so bad. They would be so
some decks,
bad.
I think, can't function on that few of cards.
But when your deck is only 20 cards, those 4 cards would probably get a lot better. I think.
If we're just going off of this rule of shrunken decks and like the hand size, Burning Abyss and Lightstorm just out of the equation.
No, oh no.
If you can't kill them like just immediately, you're decking out fast.
Yeah, you will deck. God forbid they use Waboku one time.
Yeah, and you'll just kind of end up decking out.
That's game. Sorry.
So those decks are out of the picture, just from that rule. Now let's talk about that 5-card extra deck.
That eliminates quite a few other decks too.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, like you can have a rank 4 toolbox, but then
that
you
would be
won't
your
have
whole
your
extra deck.
Yeah, your deck won't get its own thing.
But then again, some decks their only extra deck was a rank 4 toolbox to begin with.
Yeah, so I guess you just have to like what's most important to you. But the thing with this, and this goes for synchros too, is I guess this goes hand in hand with the 3 monster card zones and 3 spell and trap card zones. I don't think 3 spell and trap card zones changes all that much.
Yeah,
like people
we're not playing
really
that many back row.
Yeah,
so.
traps aren't prevalent right now, and I don't think they would be any better in this format. But I think this 3 monster card zones is interesting because it means like no more swarming, and also synchro summoning with like say synchrons, where all your stuff's level 1 and 2, and you just have to have a bunch of little pieces, and
you can make a 4.
effectively like Quasar is like impossible to make.
And not to mention
tough.
Multiple copies in your extra deck.
That is no longer a thing.
And for a synchro heavy deck, a lot of times you do keep extra copies on the one you need to make the most often. Well, sorry, bro. You're gonna make you get either if you want a full strategy, you only have 1 of each, or you can try and run 3 of your boss and see where it gets you.
I could see something like let's just take Draco Pals, which by the way I don't think would work in this format. But I think that with like Draco Pals, the extra deck would have to literally be like 2 Ignister, 1 Dino, 1 of the Fusion, and like 1 Magister Paladin, but then like a 4th, or your final Xyz would just be whatever.
Castel.
Like Castel. I don't know, because you don't get the freedom of like having all those extra little things. Oh, I get my King of the Feral Lamps.
You really don't.
But speaking of King of the Feral Lamps, that card alone, cards like that, like Raid Raptor Force Tricks, become a lot less, I think, useful.
Because before it was like, oh yeah, I get a monster and I search. Well, we weren't thinking about the fact that monster takes up a slot. But in this game, if you start off by making a search, like one of those searching Xyz monsters.
Yeah, it's not really.
You have 2 other spots.
Yeah, and so you're really gonna be able to make another Xyz. So, and the last thing is the 4,000 life points, which.
I mean, that's just obvious. Games will end a lot faster.
Maybe Chainburn's broken in this format.
I didn't think about that.
I don't know. I mean, like it just feels like with 4,000 life points, man, it's almost like a little stun deck could also just do like a lot of damage where you're just running like 1,900 things like Thunder King, and just any direct hit hurts so much.
That's true. Nickel and diamond become a big deal with 4,000 life points. 500 here, 1,000 there. It'll add up.
Very quickly, what are decks that immediately come to mind as like a lot better in this format, and what immediately comes to mind as like no longer viable at all?
Oh, I have to say Cosmo.
Oh yeah, Cosmo seems really good here.
That is, they in a way they're not even really affected by anything.
They're not affected. It's like they're just better on the basis of everything else being worse.
Yeah, if they would have said, oh, you can only banish 2 monsters a game, then
because there's no limit. Like Cosmos just aren't really affected. It's just they don't swarm the field. They'll just be leaving, and like replacing themselves. So Cosmo doesn't feel like it's harmed. Draco Pals is a lot of nerfed with this.
That's terrible for them. Any deck that also relies on reasoning or any type of mill is.
Monarchs probably don't care. Oh yeah, reasonings like Infernoids would.
Yeah,
it'd be risky.
Not have a very. They could have a good design, but they also might not.
Burning Abyss and Light Orange is immediately not good. Combo decks in general, just 3 monster card zones is very restricted.
Yeah, because a lot of you're doing a lot of little plays. It's not gonna work out.
It's really interesting just to think about. Like, I wonder if this will be like a side event eventually in the TCG, like at a big event. Like, it's like, oh, we're gonna do a speed duel side event.
Yeah, pendulums.
Yeah.
You can only make 3 monsters.
Yeah, that does limit their power a bit too. So maybe people like that. I don't know. So that's kind of our analysis of speed dueling. It's new, it's different. Obviously, it's like I said, it's not in the TCG yet. It maybe will be. We still don't even know really what the OCG is doing with it.
Yeah, I mean, OCG sells cards we don't have, so a whole format. I mean, come on.
So yeah. So what do you guys think of speed dueling? Do you think it's something that should be like a side event if it could get really popular? What decks would do well in it? What decks are just nerfed? What strategies or maybe adjustments could they even make to balance it? Because I for one think that a ban list would have to, just to deal with those things like Exodia and Chamber.
Or they're like, just side for it.
Yeah. I don't think it'll even be a side deck, right?
No.
Because a 15-card side deck would have to probably get shrunken down to like 5 cards too.
Jesus.
So, I don't know. Leave your thoughts on speed dueling in the comments. We'd love to know.
And let's just say, if this video hits 350 likes, we'll do a speed duel.
Yeah, if you guys want to see us do that, we would be more than willing to try. It actually sounds like a lot of fun.